just kick things off. I know we're going to probably still have a couple trickle through, but that's okay. You can always watch this after the fact. Now, if you're new to this webinar series, this is Nerdy Birdy. We're showing you start to finish examples of successful integrations with our synthesized vendors and channel partners. Now, we all know it's one thing to get an integration or PSA or CSA, in today's example, off the ground. Hey, it's quite another to see it take flight. This is a success-focused webinar. We're not here to sell you anything, so we want to get into the nitty-gritty. So that means we want to, what went well, less well. After all, every flight has its turbulence, and there's no shortage of bird puns. So jump into chat with your questions, get engaged, and let's have some fun. Now, before we do get started, let's review our agenda for today. And first off, we're just going to do a quick little introduction. If you don't know of me or Ricky, this is our chance to speak a little bit about ourselves. And we're just going to jump right into the thick of things and adding tweet. Yes, another bird pun, revenue streams using Cloudradial and Synthesize, overcoming billing challenges with full transparency, and really the significance of a self-serve portal, a CSA, a customer automation platform, if you will. So, and then follow that by Q&A, and we're obviously going to be paying close attention to the Q&A section. So jump in there if you do have any questions, and we'll try to answer those live. Now, myself, I come from an MSP background. Believe it or not, I actually graduated with a marketing degree, and here I am in partner success. But either way, I have experience on the other side of the fence when it comes to working with an MSP and all the nuances that go on with it. Now, I was largely on the RevOps side of things, but multi-hat wear, if you will. So I got my hands into consultation, project management, and I think I migrated like 3 PSAs in my time, and that's no easy feat. But anyways, I don't want to have any more nightmares about that. But anyways, I'm all about success. So I'm about empowering you as an MSP to spread your wings and soar with the Synthesize platform. So I'm guiding you along every step of the way. So when you do get started, obviously you are assigned a dedicated success manager with Synthesize. So that way you can extract the full potential out of that from our billing and alerts module. Now, Ricky, the Nerdy Birdy himself, he's like an all-in-one business specialist. Like, I don't know. I kind of like, poked at your LinkedIn profile, and I looked at your experience, and it's like, holy cow, you're going way back, and you have a plethora of experience, everything from development, consulting, copywriting, content strategy, advertising, data analytics. Tell us something we don't know.
Prior to all that, I used to raise and show longhorn cattle in a circuit for NASA. I wish that were why. Oh, that's a fact, which is real weird, but that's true. I'd like to lie and say like that really helped me do stuff, but that one's the outlier, the misnomer. That doesn't have anything to do with it. Yeah, I tout myself as all-in-one business specialist, obviously jack of all, master of none, but I think in my role, what I do, especially here at Cloudradial, it helps a lot. And like, just like you, I started off, I went and I got a copywriting degree because I really liked writing and communicating. And then I realized that I was also the titular good with computers, as my mom would say. And then I ended up doing some help desk stuff. And then I really kind of jived with just tech in general. So I really dug boots on the ground work. Then I started doing some firewall stuff. Then I started doing some like, yeah, this is cool, but what else is there? So I started getting into marketing. So I brought back the copywriting degree, went into really deep like business strategy, marketing strategy, communication strategy for MSPs. And then kind of, again, I as nerdy as it is, but this is the right webinar, I fell in love with the MSP space. And I just kind of started getting into like, okay, so I know how the services are rendered. I get the PSAs, I get the marketing. What about the operations? What about supporting that? And then where I finally landed, which is where I'm at now, is just figuring out how to do all the stuff that I understand and how to take that to the end user. So I'm here to talk about not just the MSPs and stuff, but also like, what is the people, who we used to be, people who don't know about MSP stuff, how do they get to understand all this complexity? I mean, it's taken me, a decade to get a somewhat kind of grasp on it. And we got to get these poor people that are paying the bills to understand it in like a day. So it's kind of,
it's true. Like there's so many elements when it comes to MSPs and all of the services rendered, and translating that to an invoice line item is really difficult. And probably one of those things, as you know, as an MSP, is like it's highly scrutinized. That IT budget, that IT spend is highly scrutinized. It's probably the first thing that they go to. So this really is a nice segue, not only from our past experience and marketing and service delivery and service marketing, is that the significance of a customer portal. Now, we all are here, and many of you, I'm sure, are Cloudradial partners. We all get it. You have centralized communication. You can track everything. There's both MSP and customer benefits, and we'll highlight those in a second here. But there's no question that when it comes down to the service delivery and being able to give this self-serve portal, this convenience in the hands of your clients, there's no questions, it's a differentiator. I myself, coming from an MSP, we struggled with that dearly. And to the point where, one of the biggest challenges, and we're probably going to talk about that later on this webinar, is just adoption. And so that's a big one that we want to address today. But let's just dive into CSA benefits for MSPs. And so tell us what a CSA is, Ricky.
Well,
enlighten us.
I wish I could say it's something that's been around for billions of years and is just now coming to light. But I think the appropriate way to say it is we made it up. But it's really something that I think it makes sense. CSA is a 3-letter acronym for customer service automation, which is pilfered from professional service automation, right? Your PSA. And the idea there is really pretty simple. Like, we're not really reinventing the wheel at all. We're just trying to put a label on something so it's easier to kind of correlate. And our whole shtick there is that we're saying like, hey, it's pretty clear to anybody who's been in the MSP space for a day or for years that like tech is there's a lot, and you got to find a way to manage it. So PSAs exist because they help you centralize your data. They help you put stuff in one place to run your tickets, run your billing, run your integrations, right? That's the back end hub of operations. And we were just thinking like, hey, the way that is super critical and important for the tech and the owner and anybody who's technical, they go, well, what do they really have at their disposal for the customer facing side? And then that's where we get into CSA. So if you think about customer satisfaction or customer service automation, it's just flipping the script. It's going like, okay, so like your more account management roles, the people paying the bills, where do they go to see the all-in-one? Where do they go to get the integration? Where do they go to get eyeballs on the technical stuff? Because they don't have access to the PSA. They don't have access to all the nitty-gritty stuff. And even if they did, their minds would just pop. So 4 bullet points on there. I'm not, going to talk through all of them at large, but that's really it. I mean, putting your communication in there to make it easy. So both your internal teams and your customers have a place to talk and say like, that's the source of truth for clients. Customer satisfaction goes hand in hand. And we're going to talk about this. We talked about this even when we were brainstorming the webinar, which is basically like, what's the middle ground? And we actually have a ton in common with you guys, right? With Gradient and Cloudradial, because in the end, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to get things the way they should be. And customer satisfaction is a chief point there. We're just trying to say that like, hey, we believe that seeing is believing, and we just want to make something that can be seen and is open and is something you can discuss and debate and whatnot. And that's going to lead to customer satisfaction because it's really down to communication. And the next 2 points are super critical as well. Personalize the experience. Everybody's different. A lot of people are the same in many ways, but it's those slight differences in your customers in the way that they communicate and the way that they operate that makes all the difference. That's gonna differentiate how you treat them. That's gonna differentiate how they see you in a relationship. And of course, the stuff that drives all of it, again, same thing as Gradient, is reducing the labor costs, because all that stuff sounds wonderful and is great. But if it takes ages to do or years to build or whatever, and it takes you more time to achieve this thing than is worth, then it's never going to go anywhere. So reducing the cost to get there and making sure that everything is actually functional is the key point to making sure it's realistic. And that's what a
Yeah.
CSA is. We have all that stuff you put together.
Yeah, and great points. And there's obviously greater benefits for the MSPs, but those are the four that we definitely want to highlight. Now, one of the best things that I found about like a self-serve portal is just tailored content, targeted messaging, customized dashboards, and really enabling a partnership to deliver relevant information and services to your customers. And let's face it, whether you specialize in a certain vertical or you have customers across the board in different industries, there's no question when it comes down to that customer benefit, being able to have that convenience, that transparency, visibility, enhanced collaboration pays dividends for you as an MSP. So there's no question when it comes to a CSA, I really love the terminology there, the CSA, because we often refer to the PSA, the documentation manager, the RMMs as quintessential tools within an MSP makeup. CSA has to be part of that, and that's often one of the biggest things from a service delivery aspect that is missing from an MSP's day-to-day operations, those client-facing operations that they're missing out on. There's so much potential to unlock by utilizing things like Cloudradial, and there's just so many benefits to talk about. And so let's talk about three of them. And these are the three that came to my mind: is that convenience of a self-serve. Customers can access information, submit support tickets, find solutions, common queries at their convenience. So reducing that labor. So if there are common queries, they can address those within the portal itself. Reduce the dependency on customer support, and really empower your customers to solve problems independently, if albeit it is those token like plug in plug out sort of things.
Sure.
And transparency and visibility. Cloudradial's customer portal provides customers with visibility into their accounts, services, support history, licenses, which we will talk about later on today, and track that progress, view invoices, access reports, promote transparency, and build trust. That's what we're both about. Synthesize Cloudradial, it's about building trust. And although we're a small component to the actual billing process, when we're focusing on just billing reconciliation, let's face it, it fosters trust, because it's one of those things, like I mentioned earlier, your IT spend is probably the first thing that's scrutinized, heavily scrutinized. It's probably scrutinized every single month. And if a single line item changes, let's face it, if you have eroding trust with one of your clients, you're probably going to get a call back. Let's reduce those all together, and let's foster a partnership. And because you're a managed service provider, and they need to understand that. And so, that's probably one of the biggest things that we constantly have to overcome with our clients, with our partnerships, is to overcome that hurdle. And it's like, we got this. And if you have a systemized, efficient billing process, and then you tack on like a CSA like Cloudradial, then all of a sudden you're not only fostering that visibility, that enhanced collaboration, that convenience of a self-serve, but you're also building that into your invoice. And let's face it, you want to get paid on time. So that's one of the things that I love to talk about, it because this is coming back to my marketing days, and one of my favorite topics was service delivery, service marketing, and we can talk about all that all day. But when it comes down to it, it's a line item on your invoice. And regardless how you structure that, how simplified or how granular you go, you want to have things matching those records within your CSA as well, right? So we'll talk about that as well. But yeah, Obviously, enhanced collaboration, that's a no brainer.
Right.
Simplifying that communication and reducing that back and forth emails or calls. And again, it just fosters efficient collaboration. And so anything that I missed there, Ricky?
I don't think so. And I think that, first of all, great summary. And I want to point out something that in the spirit of Nerdy Birdy as a series, I think that like what you guys do really well, I want to point this out, is that, you know, again, like you said at the beginning, this is not necessarily a webinar to go slinging a bunch of stuff about us and you know, what we do and how we do it. Obviously, I want to say it and the same thing you want to say, but I want to point out that it kind of bites two ways. The CSA concept is open source, right? So as much as I would love to say, and we're the only way to do it, it's not, right? There's PSAs, right? There's not just one, there's multiple. And I think that the thing that I really want to stress when we talk about all this stuff on my side is that anybody paying attention to this should really kind of be thinking about this as a whole. It's kind of like introducing dinner, right? You don't have to get it from any one place, but I really want to make it a clear-cut thing that it's going to be a thing that all these things, self-service specifically, but collaboration, transparency, whatever, as a category is not something the MSP space is doing in a bubble. This is how consumers as a whole, I mean, I've done a bunch of research on this for the company and beyond. Consumers as a whole are just becoming programmed to want to be able to have that self-service capability, that collaboration thing in a neutral space, right? So I always say this, I've said this on past webinars as well. It's like, I think that you can achieve a lot of these things yourself if you're willing to build it out or through other tools or whatever. But I think that reality is like coming together and putting all this stuff together is what gets you, right? It has to be collaborative, self-service, visible in one place. And as you know, the fewer places you can do that stuff, the better stuff integrates in, the better you're off doing, you know, a CSA approach. Same thing with the billing, as we'll see in a second. I think that the secret sauce here is not necessarily just in these benefits, which are super critical, but it's also like when you see how much legwork we're going to save when we start talking about like how we've designed this stuff, that's really what makes this, especially our partnership, pretty special, I think.
Yeah. And Cloudradial makes it really easy, right? I mean, you got a wealth of integrations and a great platform to connect to all your tools and applications, and you know that's really important. And again, this is where you know, I did a lot of consultation work with like the intranets of the world and the SharePoints and the Confluences and in my MSP days. And one thing that rang true is like just the sheer challenge of customer adoption into utilizing those platforms. We realize, I think the customer realizes that there's intrinsic benefits in using these things, but it all really boils down to adoption, that user adoption. And this is really what I wanted to highlight and just have a conversation with you and those joining us today. So jump into the chat. Like what challenges do you face when it comes to that self-serve customer portal, or even outside of that? Like, are there things that can be then resolved by leveraging something like Cloudradial? I'm sure there is, from that client facing end of things, obviously. Now, so awareness and education, that's no doubt a big challenge to overcome. You know, obviously customers may lack awareness or understanding of what the self-service portal and its benefits. So, you know, effective education, that initial user onboarding, communication strategies are crucial to highlight that value proposition and encourage adoption. So if you can get that buy-in from top down, that's perfect. But again, you know, when it comes down to that, you know, intranet of things, this is me coming back to my prior experience, you know, it was really challenging, and you're trying to publish relevant content. You're trying to, you know, promote good, effective collaboration and effective communication. And it doesn't come so easy because, you know, users find a way. They find a way to go through other mediums or go through another you know, source, and it can be challenging, there's no question. So I don't need to go highlight every one of these points. I know you all face this, but like from your experience, Ricky, how can MSPs overcome these challenges when it comes to implementing Cloudradial on a CSA platform?
Fantastic question. And I've spent the better part of nearly 4 entire years trying to solve it. Because like you said, I think that especially with something like a CSA, or even if you want to get like, can be simple, like a client portal, anything that requires interaction, a lot of the times what happens is it gets the merit of it and the success of it gets dictated highly by usage, so adoption. And I've spent a bunch of time going like, well, what is it, right? Is it, if they don't use it, is it the features? Is it the interface? Is it the accessibility? And obviously, I'll just cut to the chase. It's a mix of everything. However, the stuff that I've found to be tried and true, and we've, even when we do our implementations, we've reworked it a billion times, and we've tried to focus on the stuff, and we've come up with, I won't say the perfect, but at least our best iteration for sure, is kind of this approach where you get to say, hey, look, like something like a CSA or even a PSA, if it's easier to imagine in your head, is not a, it's like a buffet, right? It's like, it's something, it's like a cookbook. It's whatever you say, it's a lot of stuff in one. And the first step is admitting that it's okay that the entire buffet, you don't try everything, or you don't cook every recipe out of the cookbook, right? It's understanding like what is the most important part that you want them to get. So when you think about a CSA or client portal and you go, I've got training and ticketing and dashboards and this and that and that, you're offering them way too much stuff out of the gate. It's important, it's in there, but the reality is, what do you as the MSP really want to get, right? As we'll talk about, right? Is it, if that first question that you keep coming, right? Why would you even think about having a CSA? Well, do you keep getting asked about the bill and if it's right and if it's accurate, and they get mad because it's not trued up and we haven't figured, like, okay, that's one great point to tackle. Are you tired of all these tickets coming in with no information? Or are you finding that they're desperate to try to find some training mechanism, and it's like now all of a sudden shadow IT, because some people YouTube some courses on how to use Teams, they don't use, like, who knows, right? So it's like you're trying to get a grasp on these things, and that's, again, buffet approach. You go into the buffet knowing, I really want that, and that. That's what I'm going to get. There's other stuff. So first things first for adoption is always know what you're wanting, what you're hungry for, before you step in. And that's going to help a lot. So you're focused. So if you can do that, then the next steps really, and I'll brush through them quickly, is being able to say like, hey, we're going to focus our clients, we're going to focus everybody on these things. And yeah, the third bullet point you have in there, incentivizing adoption. How do you do that? So if you've got a platform, you're proud of it, you actually have the things you need in it, so you've taken care of it. The next thing you have to do is figure out like, okay, how do I incentivize? The majority of MSPs that I've worked with that have gotten adoption regularly have done so in one of two ways. One of them is sexy, and the one's not. Well, the sexy way is they go, here's a bunch of guides and videos and training. We're going to come into the office. We're going to call you up. We're going to meet with your people. We're going to show all this stuff. That's sexy because it's smooth, it's clean. You know, obviously it's handholdy, but it's apparent that it takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, and a lot of people don't have that. The unsexy, hyper-effective way, which is fantastic, but obviously at your own risk, is to pull the rug from underneath them and go, hey, if you don't use the portal, if you don't use the communication methods that we've outlined in our relationship, like we have to go through these things, fine, right? Like you said, they'll find a way, but goodbye SLA. Or maybe all of a sudden it's like, if I miss a step or do something here and there, it's like you didn't follow the process. So it's like, just like you can't follow the process, I won't follow the process. So it's like being able to have that fair conversation, saying like, I am going to do things this way, and that's the way it is. Again, like you can't necessarily mail your bank cash in an envelope and go, well, you're going to deposit it anyways, right? They're going to tell you, no, you can't do that. That's the thing. It's like that courage to have, to being able to say like, we built this because this is the way it is, and that's the way it is really hard for all of this piece, but that's critical, I think, with any software.
Yeah, and I think that's a key differentiator, right? Like, if you go for that super sexy approach, like you said, obviously it just enhances your professionalism and your value proposition as an MSP. But like, I just wanted to mention too, just incentivizing adoption. It like, for me, it comes down to the user. And so if you can incentivize the user to, you know, go to the self-serve and submit tickets, you know, maybe there are exclusive contents or rewards that are rewarded based on good adoption. And so, you know, something to consider there. Obviously, like you said before, there's no best practice when it comes to implementing a CSA, or even when it comes to billing best practices. I hate that coin. I really do. Just because, as we know in the MSP space, it's no one MSP does it the same, and no one client does it the same. And this is really where, whether it comes down to structuring and creating customer exceptions within your billing, to your CSA and modifying your self-serve portal to, address the biggest pain points that they have. Maybe it is user training. Then you have high, like exclusive content or really good content that keeps your users coming back for more. And so if you can reward them for good habits, by all means, maybe that's a suggestion. I've seen MSPs do this and they're successful in doing it. It encourages users to do things the right way. And again, you're a managed service provider and security is number one. You want to make sure that those users that are abiding by those set policies and procedures, so things are dealt with on a timely basis. Now, we can talk on end about this, but let's get into the nitty gritty, because we have already spent the last 30 minutes just talking, but I want to share my screen and really address your questions about Cloudradial, Synthesize, and really this is all about just navigating sources of truth. Now, as you know, Cloudradial as a CSA, they pull in a ton of data. And so obviously they have a great integration with Synthesize to pull in Microsoft 365 licenses across all your Cloudradial customers from each and every one of their Microsoft tenants, which is great. And it really addresses Microsoft NCE. We can talk about that in a second. But then they also have a wealth of data when it comes down to all the devices that you manage. And so again, this is where your CSA houses all this information, and you're making this readily available for your clients. You want to then make sure that you're matching those things appropriately to your billing. So again, fostering that trust, fostering that, and building and maintaining that relationship with your clients, so they're not scrutinizing every line item. And so, this comes up fairly often, and more MSPs are adopting CSAs and self-serve portals, and they're putting in their clients' hands reporting of subscriptions, licenses, etc. Their devices that they're managing and whatnot. So you want to make sure that it all balances. So this is where, if you're pulling in devices from your RMM into Cloudradial or whatever it may be, you're putting that in the hands of your clients. You sure as heck want to make sure that that's balancing with what you have on the invoice. So this is really where, obviously, we can talk about Microsoft NCE and 365, but there's other considerations out there, sources of truth within Cloudradial that we can use to then reconcile within Synthesize and true up those services rendered on the invoice. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second here, and I'll share my other screen. So so Ricky, maybe while I get this spun up here, what are some of the common questions, or maybe if those in attendance have any questions on, oh, can I pull this? And are there largely some questions around how you partners can, or MSPs can, leverage Cloudradial to reconcile their books?
Yeah, I think especially with the integration that we have with Synthesize, that's come up a lot, because I think that got the gears turning. Because yeah, I think even when we originally developed it, we were thinking okay, one of the biggest pains ever is making sure that those license counts are accurate, right? Because Microsoft has a billion different ones, the SKUs are all different and they go up and down and whatever. So that's been a pain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, first thing that happened after that is they were like, I can do that? Cool. What else can I do? It's so again, sneak preview, right? And I'm sure we're going to talk about it. But
yeah, and
we have,
yeah.
Go ahead. I don't know if you're.
Oh, I was just gonna say, there's definitely multiple use cases. Even if you're using Microsoft NCE or 365 licenses, those counts to reconcile more than just 365. I've seen MSPs leverage, they obviously, every MSP does things differently. So this is where they might have services that they break out, that they white label on their their invoice, but they're wanting to leverage the count of business premium licenses from their Microsoft tenant to reconcile said service. So there's lots of things that we can do, and we definitely have the flexibility within Synthesize to do many-to-one associations and whatnot. But yeah, let's get into the thick of things and maybe just cover the Cloudradial integration and other sources of truth. And so hopefully I'm sharing my desktop there. Perfect. So if you're new to Synthesize, what we're doing is we're pulling in all of your recurring agreement additions or services across all of your recurring agreements and contracts within your PSA. So that way you can then, that's one side of the equation. Then you can pull in all of your vendor usage. So you see something very similar to this, where you can then cross-reference to your billable quantity within your PSA, which is, in this instance, we're looking at Paper Street Soap Company. Yes, we have some fun with our customer names, but if you get that reference, jump into chat because I would love to hear it. So that's your billable quantity 136. And then say if we were to pull in your business premium licenses from Cloudradial straight from your Microsoft tenant, we'd see a change of, say, down by 2 units for a total of 38. As soon as you hit that approve button, we will immediately write back to your PSA and make that adjustment so that, again, you can efficiently review, approve, and reconcile your entire resale stack. And so the flexibility of this Cloudradial synthesizing integration really comes in to play when you're checking this out and you're getting started. So let's take a look at that. So when you do sign in, go to integrations, go to your Cloudradial integration here. We'll set up that billing only integration. We're going to generate that API token. We're going to copy that. We're going to go into Cloudradial, into your partner portal there, and we're going to go to partners, settings, integrations, and then we're going to go to creating an MSP. We're going to paste that partner API key in there. We're going to submit that. We're going to enable Gradient, and then once all said and done, we can just come back to Gradient. We can then just wait until the API is talking with one another. So we'll just maybe give it a quick refresh. We should be able to proceed next here soon. It's been a while since I had to configure this integration.
Do that force sync. Let's see.
Yeah, I have to do the force sync.
Let's go ahead and push
so the APIs talk with one another. So the idea being is, again, what we're doing is pulling all of your Microsoft 365 subscriptions across all your customer Microsoft tenants. And the one caveat there is that it's for Cloudradial partners. So if you don't have a customer within Cloudradial, encourage you to get them started and get them integrated, so that way we can pull all of your Microsoft licenses across all your tenants. Now, I might be having some difficulty here. This is the beauty of here. I think there might be here. I'll try something else here. The beauty of real live demos. We'll let that run, but maybe I'll just segue onto something different. Now, when it comes to Microsoft NCE, we all know the pain points when it comes down to the different commitment and billing terms, because this is really what I wanted to address. Now, obviously, we all know NCE sucks in the sense that there's different billing and commitment terms. You essentially have 3 different commitment terms for the same SKU. So although Cloudradial is pulling in those product names, those identifiers, and let's face it, Microsoft has like 3,000 of these things. So if you're looking at your business apps or your business premium, Cloudradial is using this unique product identifier. So this is really where you can just reference Microsoft licensing service plans, or if you need to get that SKU and map that accordingly to your product or service within your PSA, because again, they might not match. So this is your chance to make sure that you're mapping those appropriately within Synthesize. One way of getting around that is by referencing this service plan reference within Microsoft Docs, Or if you really wanted to, you can even just go into partner. You can go to reports. If you go to licenses, you're going to see all of the Microsoft 365 licenses that you effectively resell to your clients. How do you get that SKU? Well, it's really easy. All you have to do is just impersonate admin. You're going to then open that client's portal for you then to drill into those specific SKUs. So that being said, you know, when we're mapping services within Synthesize to that of Cloudradial, we're going based on that plan identifier. So that way, if you're then logged in impersonating that admin, you can just click that service or that subscription, and there you go. You got that SKU name, so that refers to Azure Active Directory Basic, obviously, and then you can just search for that particular SKU within your PSA. Again, if you match these vendor SKUs appropriately, that's great. It makes the service mapping a lot more efficient. But again, just going through the process of mapping these things appropriately. And what I wanted to highlight again to address the Microsoft NCE commitment terms is a many-to-one service mapping. So although we're pulling in all of these plan identifiers, these subscriptions through Cloudradial, and directly from your Microsoft tenants, we need to map those to potentially 3 different commitment terms. So if you're selling your business premium, annual, paid annually, annual, paid monthly, monthly, paid monthly plans, and you have a mix of those, yeah, we need to associate all 3 of those from your PSA to this single SKU within Cloudradial. So that really overcomes the challenges with you know, the Microsoft NCE commitment terms. So just be wary of many-to-one. We offer that, adds further flexibility to really meet your billing requirements and whatnot. Sorry for the kids upstairs, they're making a lot of noise. Yeah, so that's really what I wanted to highlight is Microsoft NCE. It can be handled within Synthesize with many-to-one service mappings. Now, no, we can talk at lengths about Microsoft NCE, but the integration with Cloudradial is really quite straightforward. Once you map your accounts from Cloudradial to that of your PSA, as well as your services, we're going to synchronize that usage into Synthesize for, again, going back to this page where all of a sudden you see those discrepancies. You can filter by newfound revenue, upgrades, downgrades, and really focus your attention on those changes. So again, we're giving you the control to review these prior to you sending out that invoice. We want to be proactive. We want to give you greater control over these things so you can see and address these things before it's too late, before you get a client call back asking or inquiring into these changes. So greater control, again, if you do see huge discrepancies in your usage, that may be a big red flag for you to then take out that magnifying glass, go to Cloudradial, see exactly what's gone wrong, rectify those changes within your RMM or, you know, Microsoft or your distributor. And that way, come next month, you're pulling in accurate data. You're a little bit more confident in the services that you resell. And again, just fostering and building that trust in not only managing your security and your infrastructure and all that goes into IT, but managing your books. Because for me, if I see an MSP that doesn't manage these things appropriately, and I'm a CFO and I'm highly aware of the services rendered from not only my MSP, but my other vendors and whatnot, I take this at full value. If you can't manage your books, you're not going to be managing my IT very well. So let's spend some more time in the internal processes and make sure that we're efficient and you know we're accurate, because again, this is what we're all about. Again, we can talk all about automation and we can automate this entire process already. You probably even have existing integrations that automate these things for you. But again, it synthesizes your single pane of glass So you have a single pane of glass into your resale stack. You have greater control. You can adjust those things prior to your invoice, have invoice accuracy, build and foster that trust, and get paid faster, because that's what it's all about. So chat, I think there's a question here. Oh yeah, we're connected from Microsoft 365, so that might explain a few things. So thanks, Ricky. We'll get that fixed up. That's just the beauty of demos. I should have probably tested that out beforehand. But anyhow, now let's move on to bigger and better things, because Cloudradial has a wealth of information at our fingertips.
Yeah.
One being your device list, right? So where do we go for this, by the way? Just so you can walk me through.
Yeah, so it may be a little bit different, and do you mind if I screen share on mine? Because I know I have some
sure.
data in here. So that was another thing that came up a lot. You had asked previously about, like, what else can we pull and what else can we talk about as far as like licensing and so on and so forth. And obviously, yes, Microsoft was the birth of it, and the license counts there was really important for us to be able to have that discussion, because as we know perfectly well, if you can do that, then you can have a proper discussion around, accurate billing, and yeah, the CFO is going to trust you more. But then the next question is like, well, what else can we true up, and how else can we get that information? So in the spirit of CSA, in the spirit of being able to pull that information in one place and hopefully standardize the billing of that, we can pull a bunch of stuff. So those familiar, those not familiar, I will remind you that Cloudradial has an agent that you can install. This is pretty cool because it's not an RMM. It's specifically intended to feed data into Cloudradial like an RMM, but with no execution capabilities. And the idea is to give like a different version of reporting for their customers. So in product, they can basically be able to go into their portal, into their infrastructure endpoints. And the reason I screen share is because our demo kind of has a bunch of data that we pulled in, and you can cycle through, right? So again, like theoretically put yourself in the seat that you are some point of contact at a business. You want to be able to see all this stuff. Great. So if I want to dig in and I want to see this Ricky Clown's computer, I'm not sure what his deal is, but we want to take a look and see what's going on with all of the stuff inside of his computer, I should be able to do that. But the first thing that started coming up after we started partnering was just like, well, wait a minute, you got a bunch of really interesting things in here. A, can I pull this information out? And B, can I feed it into Synthesize? Can I make something of it? The answer is yes and yes. So again, in portal, fantastic, cool. Like the experience that I'm able to go see the product key and the CPU and this, even down to the software, right? Who's playing World of Warcraft Burning Crusade? I don't know, not me, right? But once you actually get to pull that, if you want to do that, you go to partner and then you go to your reports. And then what you have here is you have basically not just reports and an Excel sheet of one client, but all of them. So what I've seen done before, which is really cool, is you can kind of pick and choose. These are the two areas I would go with. You can get that wrap-up report of every single server, endpoint, whatever, across everybody. And then what Bryan was about to show is that if you download that guy, you can get that sheet. And then with that downloaded sheet, you can then upload that back into Radiant. So I think, let me stop sharing so you can actually share that part, but I wanted to show the actual data set of where that stuff is.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Thanks for jumping on there and showing us. Yeah, so this is an example export of that device list. And so there's a ton of information. So, this is where, if you're an MSP that does sell like per workstation, or you want to separate like desktop, laptop, Mac OS, server, like we have all this information being fed into Cloudradial, and there's a ton of information that we can reference to then reconcile things within that make up your resale stack. So this is just another consideration of that source of truth that I was just alluding to earlier. Just there's a ton of data there, and just parse through that, and if there's a particular use case in which you need to leverage information like this to reconcile services within your agreements, there's ways of doing that. And so
I can actually,
at the very least, go ahead.
Yeah. I can point out a specific one that I've seen done before. One is just antivirus, right? So a lot of people will install
great question.
and figure out exactly. So like there's a column up there, I believe you'll see it, and there it is, antivirus, and it's column P. So it happened before, and this is something that like I had to walk a customer of ours through, that they were just like, hey, like, again, this is kind of fictitious data because this is pulled from our demo account. A lot of these are virtual, but real use case where you basically go like, okay, I want to track who's got what, and I want to make sure I'm billing for that. And that stuff might change. And all of a sudden it's like, this is a new computer, this one had it installed, whatever. So keeping even track of that and being able to take this spreadsheet and focus on a column and focus on that is a tangible way of going, okay, this is pretty reliable. I know how the Cloudradial agent checks for stuff. I want to true up who's got what. And if we add something, remove something, there we go. Right. So like Brian's saying, you can pick and choose stuff. That's why I've seen pretty good success with this, because obviously you can pick and choose some of the data sets, even the software list. So that's not what we're looking at right now. There's a separate report for that, but that's another version of it where you can true up using our software scanner. So in this case,
I love that. I love that. I wish I got my hands on that spreadsheet, because that comes up a lot. Is like, there's your RMM, which is like a great source of truth, but it's just getting your hands on that information that is quite troublesome at times and cumbersome. So like if you have that subscription export and you're just wanting to like return the number of like log me in or ConnectWise control licenses or agents that are installed on managed systems, then yeah, by all means, export that from Cloudradial and then import that into Synthesize. We have this great CSV utility where as long as you have your company name, service ID, or like a unique identifier, I refer that service name, that field, that synthesized field that we're mapping to your import file, as a unique identifier. So this would be a great example if you're needing to reconcile your antivirus and you have several antivirus solutions across all your managed systems. Well, guess what? You have it readily here. So this would be essentially the column that you would map that service name field to, because this would be your unique identifier. This is essentially so that way when it comes to the service mapping, you're going to be mapping your Windows Defender, your Sophos, your web roots, your Malwarebytes, your Windows Defenders to your services within your PSA. And so so again, we have the ability to aggregate quantities by service name as well, so you're not having to finesse and manipulate these reports necessarily beforehand. So really again, we're trying to, again, we're continually improving our CSV imports and our platform, but as it sits right now, you have this data at your fingertips, and if it's just to the extent of creating your first CSV import profile within Synthesize, it's easy as just coming in here, creating your profile. I would like to refer these profiles as templates, because it's just essentially like a one and done thing of mapping services and accounts to that of your vendor to your PSA. Once that is done, we save and retain those mappings for you, so you don't have to reconfigure these profiles every month. You can just set it and forget it. That way, you come every month. You just train your administrative team to come in to Cloudradial, export that usage, import to Synthesize. What takes like 5 minutes to do so, and then you're back to square one, where you're reviewing and approving those updates. You're identifying potentially unbilled revenue, newfound revenue, where you can add that to an existing contract or agreement within your PSA, sign those, do a select all, review and approve. Oh, this one's a big discrepancy. I'm going to review those. I'm going to approve the rest. That's the idea. So a couple clicks away from reconciling your services, getting your invoices out on time. Again, and making sure that you have that invoice accuracy. So there's a lot to take in there, obviously, with Microsoft NCE and the Cloudradial integration with Synthesize, but there's another step there too, where we can import that data really seamlessly with the use of our CSV import profile. Our utility is great in that sense and highly flexible with many-to-one service mappings as well. So yeah, if you haven't already started with Synthesize, please check us out. If you haven't checked out Cloudradial, maybe now is a great time and you're like, holy cow, Ricky and Bryan just blew my head off, and they're like, this is awesome, sounds great, get started with them. I don't know if you have like a link to share there, Ricky, but please pop it into chat if anyone's interested. Now to kick things off here and to wrap things all in a bow, because we only have 9 minutes left, I just wanted to just talk about the last few little takeaways. Now, if I can share my PowerPoint slide. I wanted to talk about takeaways. Now, the first takeaway is, although we didn't get to it in the surface mapping within Synthesize, because silly me, I didn't test this beforehand, and if it's not tested, it's not trusted. I knew that working on MSP, but in any case, it is a working integration. We just had some issues with the Microsoft NCE 365 connection broke with our portal. But in any case, Microsoft NCE is made easy. So this is again where, yes, you might have a mix of, commitment terms across various subscriptions within Microsoft 365, but we can then, with many to service mapping, accommodate those needs. We can even use those subscription counts to reconcile other said services. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a one-to-one business premium to business premium. We can go to the extent of mapping that to a user bundle or whatever you want. And again, takeaway number 2 is consider other sources of truth. The CSA, Cloudradial has a wealth of information at your fingertips. It's ready to be parsed through. And you can do this really efficiently. In fact, if you wanted to go to the extent of automating this, you could do that with custom integrations. If you're a PowerShell whiz, you can even use Selenium to log in to Cloudradial, export that CSV, parse through that CSV, make client exceptions, and then bring all of that information into Synthesize for you to review and reconcile. If you want to go to that approach, talk to me, because we have a great Synthesize PowerShell SDK that will really help expedite the build of those custom integrations. So if you have like very unique cases or billing requirements, or you just want to leverage that data that's already in Cloudradial through these exports, yeah, let's take a look and explore these things. There's solutions out there to automate this even more so. So, that's where Synthesize comes in. We have that SDK, we have custom integrations. So if it's not a direct integration with Cloudradial, CSV imports, we can leverage custom integrations. And so just know that that's worth exploring if you have highly customized workflows and billing processes. Just know that we can help you. Now, takeaway number 3 is harness the power of a self-serve portal. Now, we took some 30 minutes just to talk about all the benefits for an MSP and customers and overcoming adoption challenges, but there's no question that the CSA is a pivotal tool in your makeup as an MSP. So if you're not already using a CSA, go out, investigate, check out Cloudradial. They have a ton of services and solutions at your fingertips to make not only your backend operations run more smoothly, reduce labor costs, increase communication, and foster that relationship and long-term partnership. But obviously there's great benefits from the client, the customer, the end user point of view too. And if you already are a Cloudradial partner and you want to learn more, or if you feel like you're not utilizing it to its fullest potential, who do we talk to, Ricky?
I would love for you guys to email into our support, because our support's going to route you to, if you're already a customer, an account manager. If you just have questions, we can set you up with a demo. So if you haven't seen it yet, radials.io/demo or cloudradial.com/demo, either works. And if not, Cloudradial, go ahead and just email support@cloudradial.com and just say, hey, here's what I'm looking for, some help, some guidance, and we'll get you in the right direction. Easy peasy.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that it's just not like, although it can be cookie cutter, just to start, you do want to tailor and target, those things per customer, per even vertical. If you specialize in the dentistry field or whatever you do,
Right.
This is again where you want to demonstrate your commitment as an MSP to empower their end users and make it more convenient for them, because again, that's a huge differentiator in your service delivery, no question about it. create that unique customer experience with Cloudradial. Now, Q&A, I don't know if we have any Q&A. I'll just open this up. If you do have any questions, just feel free to jump into chat. But let's wrap things up. Any last thoughts there, Ricky?
I think that the golden thing that I like the most about our partnership is something we had discussed previously, which is just when you are able to have these frank discussions and open, and you're able to, yeah, like we talked about, right? CSA, show your stuff, but Synthesize is actually true up the stuff and make sure it's accurate. Then you can get past that conversation. That's really what this is about. It's getting past the conversation. And when you build that trust where you're no longer having to, you know, feel like you're trying to slip something by the customer doesn't feel like they have to audit you every single time, then you can get to building better relationships. And I think that's what really a lot of this stuff's about. So I think the gist
that's from the client facing end too, but then there's like this, like, hey, let's maximize profits from an MSP's perspective. Like, you know, 10 times out of 10, when an MSP goes to connect to Synthesize and turns on their very first integration and maps to at least one service, they're going to see discrepancies. Right. So even if you want to use Synthesize as of right now, there's still time for this next billing period. Jump in, turn on integration, do a CSV import, turn on Cloudradial. Again, once you map that first service, you're going to see discrepancies, no questions. And I think it might be even eye-opening. And often the case it is, to the point where I've seen MSPs have to structure their entire agreement or resale stack because of inconsistencies, because of all the money that's left on the table. And so again, this is, again, not only back-end efficiencies with your billing practices, but also client facing. It all comes together in one. And, you know, again, giving that visibility, have greater invoice accuracy, reducing those client callbacks, being proactive, addressing things as they come up, having greater control over your resale stack. And Cloudradial just happens to have this awesome integration with even more data that you can extract from their portal. So that's a good wrap up. I don't think there was any other questions that come through here. So thank you for spending the last 60 minutes with us. And yeah, look forward to working with y'all.
All right. Thanks, guys. And thanks, Bryan.
Thanks, Ricky. Thanks for your time. Take care,
Bye.
man. Bye.